Hi everyone, in this episode I'm going to talk about whether you should buy an untitled block of land or you should buy an established property. A lot of people, they DM me on Facebook or Instagram and they say, "Hey PK, I've found a block of land in northwest Sydney or in the western suburbs of Melbourne or far north in Brisbane or in the western suburbs towards Ipswich. It's pretty cheap. I can just book it. I can just get it for $40,000 deposit or $30,000 deposit, sometimes even less. Should I go for it? I mean, in the meantime, it's going to go up, right? So it's going to be amazing. They're really excited about that. And they have these questions. Is that a better strategy just to get in with low capital, start making money? Or should you actually get an established property, something already built, whether it's 5 years old, 10 years old, 30 years? Does that make a better investment? In this episode, we'll go through the pros and cons of each. A lot of people have made money in both ways. And at the end of the episode, I'm going to share what I normally do so that you can avoid a few pitfalls and actually get ahead. If you want to make money in property in 2020, then make sure you listen to this episode right through to the end.
Welcome to the Oz Property Investment Mastery Podcast. My name's PK and I help busy people build passive income by buying top 5% growth and cash flow property and build a portfolio using data without wasting months doing research, spending weekends at inspection or catching flights, or dropping $10,000 to $20,000 on buyer's agents every single time. So if you're confused, lack confidence, and just overwhelmed with all the information and marketing misinformation available online and don't know where to start, then this show is for you.
Let's go through the untitled land scenario first. So imagine this. There's a piece of land, maybe it's $200,000, $300,000, maybe $400,000. You can secure it for just 5% deposit. Maybe that 5% deposit is $20,000, maybe it's $30,000, maybe it's $40,000. Sometimes they let you have it for as little as $5,000. And so it's like you're securing, holding, controlling this land that's actually worth two, three, 400,000 with just 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, $30,000. And by the time the developer's got all the approvals, all the services are in place, and it's ready for construction, that thing could have gone up $100,000, $150,000. So you've put in $20,000, $30,000. It's already made 100, 150. That is the appeal of buying an untitled piece of land. Now, obviously, one pro is that it's cheap. It's super cheap to get into. You could actually even, not that I recommend it, throw the dice. Even if you don't have enough money to settle it, you might even throw the dice and know that by the time you are to settle that piece of land, maybe 18 months or 2 years, 1 year, your income will rise, you'll save more from your job, you'll be able to actually sell that land. I don't recommend that from a risk perspective, but some people want to buy these things in cash, and that is their strategy. Hey, it's worked for some, but that is a downside. Most people fund the land through loans, and so that won't be such a big risk. Now, the other upside, as I already mentioned real quick, is you could get a huge return on investment for a little investment to start with. So that's clearly the case. The number three positive is that oftentimes investors, they follow new estates as they develop and they get in early. When you get in early, you get the best allotments. Maybe they're the largest blocks, or they're the best positioned, or they're the best shaped, rectangular. They get these allotments or blocks. And so when the whole estate or whole area is fully developed out, 3, 4, 5 years in the future, their house is most in demand. Another upside of this strategy is that when you do build, you can build exactly to the specification of what the target demographic renter in that area wants. And therefore, you can increase the chances of a zero vacancy and continuous rental demand. That's always a good thing, reverse engineering what the locals want. Another upside is that you don't pay stamp duty on the land. In Australia, if you buy an established house, you're paying stamp duty on the entire thing. Let's say you buy for $500K, you're paying stamp duty on the entire thing. If you're just buying land, you're not paying stamp duty on the land. When you build, you're paying stamp duty on the build component, so you are saving some stamp duty. So those are some positives for untitled land. Now let's switch to established houses, some positives for deploying this strategy instead. Number one is if you buy untitled land, your property purchase is subject to the sunset clause. If the developer can't complete their civils within the time that they said they would, then they can invoke something called the sunset clause where they actually terminate the contract. And so let's say you put down 30, $40,000 a deposit. They invoked the sunset clause because they couldn't get all the approvals and civil works done. They do that after 18 months, 2 years. And then, of course, terminating contract, they give you your deposit back. But now there's this huge opportunity cost. You could have used that money to invest something else and made hundreds of thousands of dollars in those 2 years. So that's a lot of opportunity cost, which is one reason I do not like the untitled land strategy always. The other downside of untitled land is that you have to be ready to actually settle almost any time. So let's say the developer said, yeah, the settlement time is going to be around 18 months. And then in a year's time, they say, we're ready to settle. You have to be finance ready. You have to have your pay slips ready. You need to have your income steady so that the lender will actually give you the loan to buy, to settle on that untitled land. If you're not able to do that, then you're in a pickle because you're forced to settle this and you don't have the lender to actually give you the money. That could give you some financial hardship. The other downside of untitled land is the price of land could go down. Like, let's say Box Hill. Box Hill is made in New South Wales. A lot of people, a lot of money through this untitled land strategy. But there are periods of time, let's say in 2017 to 19, or from 2022 to 2023 or 2024, where the price of land has actually dropped in some parts in these northwestern suburbs in Sydney. And so if you deployed this untitled land strategy, sure, you're controlling it for $40,000, $30,000 deposit, $50,000 deposit, whatever the case is, that land value is actually dropped. Now you've invested in something and you're forced to build on it and it's losing value. Like, that's a pretty demoralizing situation to be in. And it's harder to predict the growth outcomes of these areas because they're new. The data isn't mature, isn't deep. It's not statistically reliable to look at various factors like days on market, stock on market. It's not enough to say, oh, there's a shopping center coming in, schools coming in, because we know sometimes those things get canceled or delayed by 5, 10, 15 years further. So you're stuck left holding something you really don't want. The other downside of investing in untitled land is, let's say you put in $50,000 deposit, you're holding a piece of land worth, let's say $250,000. Yep, that thing goes up by 10%, $25,000. That's fantastic. Instead, if you had the borrowing capacity and actually the funds available, let's say you bought a $500,000 property established, right? For that, you would have needed almost $100,000 of deposit, including stamp duty and everything, and of course $400K of borrowing capacity, and that grows by $150,000. 20%, of course, of 500 is 100. That goes up by $150,000. So the gain is off a higher base, and therefore you would have made more money in the same period buying established. And the other downside of untitled land is your exit options. Sometimes these land contracts don't have a clause where you can nominate your land to someone else, like a friend, family member, colleague. If you can't actually settle for financial reasons, sometimes they don't let you exit, they don't let you resell it. And in which case, if you've lost your job and you can't afford to settle it, you're in a real predicament, and that could set you bankrupt. Another downside of the untitled land strategy that I'm seeing, especially these days, 2024, 2025, and now in 2026, is that because construction costs have risen almost 15% since the start of COVID, and because we have a massive skills shortage in Australia, especially in the capital cities, especially in places like Brisbane, where all the tradespeople are working on the Olympic Games, infrastructure projects, that builders are not only going bust, but those that are still staying above water, they simply don't have enough labor to do the job that they wanted in the time that they said they would. So let's say you do settle the land, now it's time to build. The builder might say this house can get built in 8 months or 6 months or 12 months. Realistically, what I'm seeing is it's taking more like 20 months, 24 months, even 36 months. And so in that entire time, you're not collecting rent. Your borrowing capacity is sucked up. You're not able to, even if you have more deposit capital ready, the bank is unlikely to give you another loan. They're already seeing that you're committed to this one and there's no end in sight. And that can be a really frustrating experience because you don't have control over it. Oftentimes builders go bust in the middle of projects and then you need to find a new builder. That's a headache enough and really stressful. But then the new builder is really hesitant to pick on and continue work from where the old builder left off because there's completely different drawings that they might want to do up. They don't know exactly where the handover points are, and that adds extra cost and extra length to the project. Cost is something that will almost always blow out, and you should always keep at least a 10-20% contingency. And if you do that, you might actually find that the rental yield doesn't stack up anymore. You're buying this land, you're building, and you end up getting a 4.5, 5% yield. Is that really worth it? For a lot of people, it isn't. And on the topic of delays, I'm seeing a lot of property companies that sell house and land packages. They're the ones who are facilitating you putting down a deposit on a land, and then the civic works isn't actually done for 36 months, 48 months, sometimes even 5 years. There are companies out there that sell brand new house and land packages. You might have seen ads of them just before this episode or after or during this episode. I'd love to tell you what the name is, but I'll probably get sued. In any case, they're buying in places like the north side, far north in Melbourne, places where there's abundant land, and there are clients of theirs that signed up in 2021 that still haven't settled the land because there are so many delays. Imagine that. 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years of no progress. In that same time, you could have bought an established property, let's say 400K. The thing would have doubled, or if not more than doubled, if you had bought back in 2021, 2022. And then you would have bought another one, taking equity, you're supplementing it with more deposit, and then you would have bought another one. You could have been on 3, 4, 5, 6 house, making passive income, probably like my clients are that started back then, on more than $1-2 million of equity by now. Meanwhile, these other people are stuck waiting for that land to settle. So there are positives, don't get me wrong. I went through the positives. Untitled land strategy has made a lot of people a lot of money. But generally, this strategy really only works in boom times. If you think the entire city is not going to boom, then generally speaking, if you think the entire city isn't going to boom and it's going to be a matter of markets within markets, more scientific approach to property investing, follow the fundamentals, then buying established property is what I prefer. That's what I've done. That's what the majority of my clients do. And I think for me, you're not missing out on any capital growth. In fact, you're making more by buying established land, because generally the land to asset ratio is high. Because the building is already depreciated, you're predominantly paying for the land, not the building. Whereas when you buy untitled land, the land might be 200K, then the house is probably 300K. You're mostly paying for the building on top, which depreciates. That thing doesn't rise in value. So if you want to pay $500,000, try to mostly pay for the land, and that is only available in an established property. And for me, it's just a lower headache, lower stress, lower work, a lazy, intelligent way to invest in property, to buy established property. There's no messing around with having to wait years and years to potentially settle. You don't have to wait years to start collecting rent. That starts within 30 days or 60 days when you settle your established property. The banks like it because as soon as you settle, the rent comes in and then they start giving you a loan for your next investment property, which is not the case in untitled land necessarily. And the last thing is you know what you're going to get. A brand new estate, yes, it's worked for a lot of people. I don't want anyone to say, oh, PK, I've made so much money with untitled land. Granted, there are people who have done that, and all credit to you, but you don't know what you're going to get. A lot of people are holding land in Box Hill. They might have made money, they might not have made money, but now they're looking around and they're thinking, I don't really want to be living here. The schools that were promised didn't get built. The shopping centers didn't come around. The amenity isn't simply there. And I don't feel like I'm living in Australia. It looks like only a certain demographic actually wants to live here. Now, that might be a good thing, bad thing, but you don't know what you're going to get. With established property, especially in an established suburb, it's already there. You know what you're getting, and you can make an educated decision in a moment of time with very little risk and unknowns. And I think that's the way of property investing. Try to limit the risk, maximize the reward. Untitled land works really well, but the risk is higher and the reward potentially is a little bit lower. There are people who have made money in both. Let me know if you've made money with untitled land. Let me know if you've made money with buying established properties. But if you ask me, I would go with established properties every day of the week, every single time, unless you don't have enough money right now to buy an established property of even $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. You only have enough money to buy land, in which case I would probably say at least get your foot in the door, buy that untitled land, unless you're able to save enough really quickly within the next 6 months or so to buy established property. Hopefully that helped. My name's PK. Hit the subscribe button if it did. Remember, no one cares about your money as much as you do. And the most important real estate is not established property or untitled land, but the 6 inches between your two ears. To level up and invest in those 6 inches, I'll leave a link below to my Facebook group with 70,000 people, Australian Property Mastery with PK. Thank you for being with me, and I'll see you next time.